A remote African tribe knew secrets of the cosmos that science took centuries to confirm. How did the Dogon people of Mali, living in apparent isolation, describe with stunning accuracy a star, invisible to the naked eye, orbiting our brightest sun? This is the heart of one of history's most compelling puzzles. By the end of this journey, you will have explored every facet of this profound mystery, from ancient star gods to modern skepticism, and formed your own conclusion. We will investigate how their sacred knowledge predates telescopes, and why their story challenges everything we assume about ancient wisdom. What does it truly mean for a civilization to be called advanced? Their world is carved from the very cliffs they call home. The Dogon people inhabit the Bandiagara Escarpment in Mali, a breathtaking landscape of sandstone plateaus and dramatic precipices that has sheltered them for centuries. Here, they have built their distinctive villages directly into the cliff face, structures of mud and timber that seem to grow organically from the rock. This is not merely a place to live, it is a fortress of culture, a sanctuary where their unique way of life has been preserved against the tides of time and outside influence. Their society is a complex tapestry woven with intricate social structures, governed by a council of elders and a spiritual leader known as the Hogan. Every aspect of their existence, from agriculture to architecture, reflects a deep, symbiotic relationship with their harsh yet beautiful environment. This connection extends far beyond the Earth, reaching into the cosmos itself. Their spiritual life is profoundly astronomical, with the stars and planets woven into the very fabric of their rituals and beliefs. This celestial devotion is most vividly expressed in their famous Dama ceremonies, elaborate funerary rites meant to guide the souls of the departed. Dancers, cloaked in brilliantly colored masks that represent different animals and cosmic forces, move in hypnotic rhythms, their performances a living map of the universe as the Dogon understand it. But how does such detailed knowledge travel across generations without a written language? The answer lies in the power of the spoken word. A dedicated class of priests, the Alubaru, are the living librarians of this ancient wisdom. They are the custodians of an immense oral tradition, a vast body of knowledge concerning the stars, the creation of the universe, and the nature of the gods, passed down through countless generations with meticulous precision. This is not casual storytelling. It is a sacred and disciplined process of memorization and recitation, ensuring that the secrets of the cosmos are never forgotten. At the heart of this celestial mystery lies a star system so brilliant it has captivated humanity for millennia. Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, burns with a piercing white light. For ancient cultures across the globe, it was a beacon, a herald of seasons, a god. But Sirius holds a secret, one invisible to the naked eye. It is not a single star, but a pair locked in a gravitational dance. The star we see is Sirius A blazing giant. Its companion, however, is something entirely different, a cosmic ghost known as Sirius B. This is a white dwarf, the incredibly dense, Earth-sized corpse of a once mighty star. It is so faint and orbits so close to its brilliant partner that spotting it is like trying to see a flickering candle held right beside a massive searchlight. Modern astronomy only confirmed its existence in the 1860s, a triumph of telescopic technology and theoretical prediction. This is the established scientific fact that makes the Dogon knowledge so profoundly baffling. Long before those powerful lenses were ever pointed at the sky, the Dogon people spoke of this very companion. They described a tiny, heavy star, made of a substance they called the heaviest matter in the universe, orbiting Sirius in an elliptical path over a 50-year cycle. How could a people, isolated for centuries, know about a star that science took centuries to find? The foundation of the mystery is set, and it challenges our understanding of history itself. Into this world of cliffside villages and celestial dances step two French anthropologists, Marcel Graillul and Germain Dieterlen. Their work, spanning from the 1930s through the 1950s, would become the very conduit through which the Dogon mystery reached the wider world. This was not a brief visit or a superficial study. Graillul and his team were pioneers of a method known as immersive fieldwork, living among the Dogon for years, learning their language, and patiently observing their daily lives and complex rituals. They were not there to simply document from a distance, they were there to understand. This long-term commitment was the key that began to unlock a deeper level of trust. For years, they were seen as respectful students, outsiders who were genuinely interested in the fabric of Dogon society. Then, in 1946, a pivotal shift occurred. After 16 years of consistent work, the Dogon elders, led by a revered blind hunter named Dogon Mali, made an extraordinary decision. They invited Marcel Graillul into their innermost circle of knowledge. For 33 consecutive days, Dogon Mali sat with Graillul, systematically unveiling the layers of Dogon cosmology. It was a monumental act of sharing, a transmission of sacred knowledge that had been guarded for generations. Germaine Dieterlen continued this deep collaboration for decades, her work solidifying the meticulous records of this oral tradition. The secrets they recorded were staggering, a detailed map of the universe that spoke of the star Sirius and its invisible, dense companion. This was the moment the puzzle pieces were gathered, setting the stage for a controversy that would ignite decades later. The knowledge shared by Dogon Mali was not a simple star myth, it was a precise astronomical profile. The Dogon called the brilliant Sirius A by the name Po Tolo, but their focus, their reverence, was reserved for its invisible companion, a star they named Po Tolo. Po means seed in their language, a name that perfectly captures the essence of this cosmic object, tiny yet containing immense potential. Their descriptions of Po Tolo are what send a chill down the spine of any historian of science. They stated with absolute certainty that this seed star was made of a metal heavier than any found on Earth, a substance they called sagala. They said it was inconceivably dense and heavy, so much so that all the people of Earth could not lift it. This is a stunningly accurate description of a white dwarf star, an object where a sun's worth of mass is crushed into a volume no larger than our planet, creating matter millions of times denser than lead. Furthermore, the Dogon priests described its orbit around Sirius A as taking 50 years to complete, a path that was not a perfect circle, but an ellipse. This, too, is correct. Modern astronomy has precisely measured Sirius B's orbital period at 50.14 years. This is the core of the baffling anomaly. Every piece of this puzzle, from the star's existence and density to its orbital period, was a secret held by a tribe in Mali, shared with Graillul in 1946. Yet, the scientific confirmation of these facts unfolded on a completely different timeline. Astronomers first suspected a dark companion to Sirius due to wobbles in its motion in the 1830s. The visual confirmation of the tiny, faint Sirius B through a powerful telescope did not happen until 1862. Its mind-bending density and classification as a white dwarf were 20th century revelations. So we are left with a jarring question. How could an isolated African culture possess a detailed, scientific understanding of a celestial object that required the most advanced technology of the Western world to even detect? The mystery only deepens from here. This profound astronomical knowledge is woven into a creation story as mysterious as the stars themselves. To understand the Dogon, you must understand the Namo. These are not mere mythical figures. They are central, living gods in their cosmology, described as amphibious beings, part human and part fish. According to the sacred teachings passed down through generations, the Namo originated in the Sirius system. They were the progenitors of civilization, the bearers of wisdom who descended from the heavens. The Dogon recount that the Namo arrived on Earth in a great vessel they describe as an ark, a ship that spiraled down from the sky amid a great storm and a roaring wind. This event was not a peaceful arrival, but a cataclysm of fire and flood that scarred the land. From this ark, the Namo emerged, bringing with them the fundamental principles of human society, agriculture, law, and most importantly, the deep knowledge of the stars. They imparted this cosmic wisdom directly to the Dogon ancestors, charging them with its preservation. This is the Dogon's own explanation for their incredible insight. Their knowledge of Sirius B, of its density and its orbit, was not discovered through telescopes, but was given to them as a sacred gift from star-faring teachers. The Namo, these fish-like deities from a distant sun, are the answer to the riddle. Their story provides a complete, internally consistent narrative for how an isolated tribe could know secrets of the universe that science would only grasp centuries later. This celestial knowledge is not locked away in dusty memories, it is performed. The Dogon bring the orbit of their sacred star to life in one of the most spectacular rituals on Earth, the Sigwi ceremony. Unlike the more frequent Dahmer rites, Sigwi is a generational event, occurring roughly every 60 years. Its timing is not arbitrary, it is a profound echo of the cosmos. The ceremony is a grand, communal reenactment of the 50-year orbital cycle of Sirius B, a living calendar written not on paper, but in the bodies and spirits of an entire people. The purpose of Sigwi is nothing less than the renewal of the world. It is a ritual of cosmic realignment, a moment to reaffirm the order of the universe, honor the ancestral Namo, and ensure the continued fertility and life of the community for the next great cycle. The entire society mobilizes for this event, which can last for years, culminating in a series of elaborate processions, masked dances, and sacred chants. The most iconic symbol of Sigwi is the Great Mask, a serpentine wooden mask that can be dozens of feet long, carried by a line of initiated men. Its undulating path through the village is a direct representation of the elliptical orbit of Po Tolo around its brilliant parent star. Every step, every chant, every carved symbol is a piece of a celestial map. This synchronization of their social and spiritual calendar with the dance of a distant, invisible star is perhaps the most breathtaking aspect of the entire mystery. It transforms abstract astronomical data into a lived, felt experience. The Dogon do not just know about the orbit of Sirius B, they embody it, they celebrate it, and they believe their very survival depends on its proper observance. This deep, rhythmic connection between the heavens and human life challenges our modern separation of science and spirituality, suggesting a worldview where the two are inseparably intertwined. Their understanding of the cosmos was not confined to words and dances alone. It was etched into the very ground and carved into their most sacred objects. Among the most compelling pieces of evidence are the Dogon star maps, intricate diagrams that seem to chart the heavens with a startling clarity. These are not simple sketches of constellations as we see them, but symbolic representations of a deeper cosmic truth. The centerpiece of these maps is almost always the Sirius system. In many of these drawings, a large central circle represents the brilliant Sigi Tolo, our Sirius A. But it is never alone. A much smaller dot, or sometimes a sigil shaped like a seed, is drawn alongside it. This is Po Tolo, the dense companion, and its placement is never random. The Dogon depicted at a specific point in its orbit, its distance from the primary star carefully noted. The most profound maps go even further, hinting at a third star in the system, an object they call Mye, or the Son of Women. This is a staggering claim, as some modern astronomers have theorized about the possible existence of a Sirius C, a smaller red dwarf that has so far eluded definitive detection. The Dogon maps suggest they were aware of a complex gravitational dance involving multiple bodies. Their symbols for these stars are not arbitrary. They use specific, repeatable glyphs. Po Tolo is often shown with a spiral or a series of concentric circles, a powerful visual metaphor for its immense density and spinning motion. When you see these diagrams, you are not looking at random patterns. You are looking at a coherent cosmological model, a diagrammatic understanding of a binary star system that mirrors the charts produced by modern observatories. How do you explain such precise symbolism emerging from a culture without writing, without telescopes? The maps present a silent, visual testimony to a knowledge that feels impossibly ahead of its time. These artifacts force us to confront a difficult choice. Were the Dogon the recipients of an ancient, advanced wisdom? Or is there another, more earthly explanation for how their symbols so perfectly match our modern star charts? The answer lies not just in the stars, but in the complex history of human contact. Such a perfect alignment of ancient myth and modern science seems almost too good to be true, and for many scientists, that is precisely the problem. The most compelling and widely accepted counter-argument to the Dogon mystery is known as the contamination hypothesis. This theory suggests that the Dogon did not preserve a secret from the stars, but instead absorbed a secret from their earthly visitors. The timeline is critical here. The key details about Sirius B, its 50-year orbit and incredible density, were firmly established in Western astronomy by the early 20th century. This was also the period when European missionaries, colonial administrators, and explorers began to have sustained contact with the Dogon people. Proponents of this view, including the celebrated astronomer Carl Sagan, argue that it is far more probable that this astronomical information was transmitted during these encounters. Imagine a French colonial schoolteacher in the 1920s, using the brilliant Sirius as an example in a lesson about binary stars, or a missionary trying to find common spiritual ground by discussing the heavens. A single, casual conversation about the amazing discovery of a dark, heavy companion star could have been enough. This new, fascinating information would not have been discarded. Instead, it could have been seamlessly woven into the rich tapestry of existing Dogon cosmology, finding a perfect home within their stories of the Namo. Over a generation or two, this newly adopted knowledge would have been polished by the oral tradition, becoming indistinguishable from the ancient lore. The story would have been told and retold until its modern origin was forgotten, leaving behind only the baffling coincidence that so captivated the world. This is a powerful and logical explanation, one rooted in the documented realities of cultural exchange. It suggests that the Dogon mystery is not a puzzle of ancient astronauts, but a testament to the dynamic, living nature of human storytelling itself. Another layer of this mystery rests on the very nature of interpretation itself. What if the core issue is not a transmission of facts, but a translation of meaning? This second skeptical viewpoint asks us to consider the possibility that Marcel Graillul and Germain Dieterlen, despite their years of dedicated work, fundamentally misunderstood what they were being told. They were trained anthropologists, products of a Western scientific tradition that seeks empirical, verifiable data. When they sat with Agat Merli and listened to the intricate stories of the Namo and the starry seeds, they may have been listening for a literal truth that was never intended. Could it be that they took a profound, symbolic spiritual cosmology and forcefully mapped modern astronomical facts onto it? The Dogon worldview is not divided into separate boxes for science and religion. Their cosmology is a holistic system where every element, every story, is rich with multiple layers of meaning, connecting the spiritual, the moral, and the natural world. The story of Po Tolo, the seed star, might be a powerful metaphor for the origin of life, for the soul, or for the concept of potentiality itself. Its incredible density could be a spiritual concept, representing the weight of divine knowledge or the concentrated essence of a god, not a physical measurement of stellar matter. Its 50-year orbit could be a mythological cycle tied to their own ritual calendar, a number representing completion and renewal, long before it was ever linked to a telescopic observation. In this light, the apparent accuracy of their astronomy is an illusion created in hindsight. Later researchers, already aware of the facts about Sirius B, looked back at Graillul's records and saw a perfect match. They connected dots that were never meant to be connected in that way, overlaying a modern, scientific grid onto an ancient, symbolic map. The story was always a spiritual one, a beautiful and complex allegory for creation. We are the ones who turned it into a star chart. So, does this explanation resolve the entire puzzle, or does it simply reframe the debate into a clash of worldviews? This controversial interpretation of the Dogon mystery found its most famous voice in the late 1960s. Authors like Erich von Däniken looked at the same pieces of the puzzle and assembled a radically different picture. Their conclusion was as simple as it was sensational. The Dogon knowledge was not a product of ancient genius or modern contamination. It was a literal record of contact with an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. In this framework, the Namo were not mythological symbols. They were actual physical beings. Their description as amphibious creatures was not a metaphor, but a factual account of their biology, perhaps adapted to a watery world or requiring a liquid environment. The great arc that spiraled down from the sky was not a spiritual vessel, it was a spacecraft. The accompanying fire and roaring wind were the sonic boom and exhaust of a rocket-powered descent. This theory proposes that these visitors from the Sirius system landed on Earth in the distant past, interacting directly with the ancestors of the Dogon. Their gift was not just spiritual wisdom, but concrete, technical data. The information about Sirius B, its 50-year orbit, and its incredible density was a direct download of astronomical facts from a culture that had already mastered interstellar travel. The white dwarf star was not a mystical concept. It was a navigational landmark for these starfarers, a piece of their own celestial map shared with a fledgling humanity. This idea transforms the entire mystery. The Dogon oral tradition becomes a faithful, if poetically framed, historical document. Their rituals are not just symbolic reenactments, but anniversaries of a real, world-altering event. The theory asks us to take the stories at face value, not as allegory, but as reportage. It answers the how with a breathtaking leap, suggesting that the only way an isolated tribe could know such things is because someone from that very star system came down and told them. This explanation resonates with a deep, almost primal human question: are we alone? The Dogon mystery, seen through this lens, offers a tantalizing, and for some, a comforting answer that we have not always been. There is another possibility, one that requires no star gods and no colonial school teachers. It is a vision of human ingenuity, born from the patient, relentless study of the night sky over countless generations. Could the Dogon have discovered the secrets of Sirius entirely on their own? Imagine a lineage of priest astronomers, the Ulubaru, dedicating their entire lives to watching the heavens. Their observatory was the open plateau beneath a canopy of brilliant stars, their instrument the unwavering human eye. This was not a casual hobby. It was a sacred scientific discipline, a long-term project spanning centuries. They would have tracked the movements of every visible star and planet, noting subtle shifts and patterns with a precision we can barely comprehend today. Over hundreds of years, this accumulated data could reveal anomalies. The key might have been a tiny, almost imperceptible wobble in the brilliant light of Sirius O itself. A star that appears to sway ever so slightly in its path could indicate the gravitational pull of an unseen companion. They would not have seen Sirius B, but they could have inferred its presence, its mass, and the shape of its orbit through the dance of its brilliant partner. The 50-year cycle is not a random number. It is a number that emerges from patient, generational record-keeping. A grandfather notes a peculiarity. His grandson confirms it decades later, and his great-grandson finally pieces together the full orbital period. This theory presents the Dogon not as passive recipients of knowledge, but as brilliant, independent scientists of the African continent. Their achievement stands as a monumental testament to the power of the human mind and the profound intellectual traditions that flourished in isolation. It challenges the very assumption that advanced astronomy must always come from the West with a telescope. What if the true secret of the Dogon is not a mystery from the stars, but a celebration of their own unparalleled dedication to understanding the cosmos? The threads of this mystery stretch far beyond the cliffs of Mali, reaching across the vast Sahara to the banks of the Nile. Ancient Egypt, a civilization obsessed with the stars, held Sirius in the highest reverence. They knew it as Sothis, and its heliacal rising, its first appearance in the dawn sky each year, signaled the imminent flooding of the Nile. This annual event was the cornerstone of their calendar, the very rhythm of life, death, and rebirth for their entire society. The Egyptian goddess Isis was intimately linked to Sothis, just as the Dogon associated Sirius with their own creator figures, the Namo. This shared, profound focus on a single star is a striking parallel that cannot be easily dismissed. It raises a tantalizing question. Could these two great African civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and millennia, be drawing from the same deep well of ancient knowledge? Some researchers propose a forgotten trade route, not of gold and salt, but of ideas. They envision a time when the desert was less hostile, a green corridor connecting the cultures of the Nile Valley to the peoples of the West African interior. Along these routes, priest astronomers might have traveled, exchanging celestial secrets, the core knowledge of a significant companion to Sirius, and the complex cosmology surrounding it, could have been part of this shared intellectual heritage. In this theory, the Dogon are not an anomaly, but a surviving branch of a much older, Pan-African astronomical tradition, one that was meticulously preserved in their isolation long after it was lost or transformed elsewhere. The Egyptians built pyramids to mirror the stars, while the Dogon danced their orbits, but both actions sprang from a common understanding of the cosmos. This idea of a shared system reframes the entire mystery. It suggests the Dogon knowledge is not impossibly ancient, but historically plausible, a remnant of a time when sophisticated astronomical ideas flowed freely across the continent. Their story becomes a powerful testament to the intellectual achievements of Africa itself, a legacy written not in stone, but in the stars and kept alive through unwavering oral tradition. The human mind is capable of feats of memory that defy our modern expectations. We often assume that complex data requires written records to survive, but for cultures like the Dogon, memory itself is a sacred technology, honed over a lifetime. The transmission of their astronomical knowledge is not left to chance. It is safeguarded by a sophisticated system of mnemonic devices, turning abstract information into unforgettable experiences. Every ritual, every chant, and every carved symbol is a piece of a vast, living library. The Sigwi ceremony is the ultimate example. This grand, generational performance is not just a celebration, it is an act of communal memory. As the entire village participates in the dances that map the orbit of Sirius B, they are not merely observers. They are the hard drives of their culture, physically internalizing the celestial data through rhythm, movement, and song. The intricate steps of the dancers become a walking star chart. The lyrics of the chants a recited astronomical table. This knowledge is encoded in multiple formats, creating a powerful redundancy. If one person forgets a detail, the collective memory of the group corrects the error. The stories of the Namo are not just told. They are performed with specific cadences and poetic structures that make them easier to memorize, much like the epic poems of ancient Greece. The symbols carved onto their granary doors and ritual objects are not mere decoration. They are visual triggers, a symbolic script that recalls entire chapters of cosmological doctrine with a single glance. A spiral carved into wood instantly brings to mind the spinning, dense nature of Po Tolo. This multi-sensory approach, engaging sight, sound, and motion, creates a memory system far more resilient and emotionally resonant than ink on a page. It proves that the accurate transmission of complex data across centuries is not a supernatural phenomenon. It is the result of a cultural priority, a dedicated cast of custodians, and a brilliant methodology that transforms the human community into its own most durable record. Modern astrophysics has turned its powerful eyes toward the Sirius system, and the data it has returned only deepens the intrigue. The Hubble Space Telescope and other advanced observatories have provided crystal-clear confirmation of what the Dogon described for centuries. Sirius B is indeed a white dwarf, a stellar remnant so dense that a single teaspoon of its matter would weigh many tons on Earth. This perfectly mirrors the Dogon concept of Sagala, that impossibly heavy substance they said all the people of Earth could not lift. The star's orbital period has been clocked with incredible precision at 50.14 years. A number that lands with stunning force next to the 50-year cycle the Dogon have celebrated in their Sigwi ceremony for generations. Even the elliptical shape of its orbit, a detail they consistently included in their stories and sand drawings, is a verified fact. Every major claim they made about this invisible star has been vindicated by our most sophisticated science. The companion is small, it is incredibly dense, and it follows a 50-year elliptical path. This is no longer a matter of vague mythological parallels. It is a point-for-point match between an ancient oral tradition and the hard data from modern astrophysics. So where does this leave us? We are faced with a knowledge that should not exist. A detailed celestial profile held by a people who lacked the fundamental tool required for its discovery. The telescope was the key that unlocked this secret for Western science, yet the Dogon seem to have possessed the very same key, forged not from glass and metal, but from memory and myth. This verification from the heavens themselves forces the mystery to a new level. It narrows the possibilities, challenging every skeptical explanation and inviting us to wonder, once more, how such a thing could possibly be true. Yet these skeptical arguments, while logical on the surface, are not without their own significant cracks. The cultural contamination theory, for instance, rests on a critical assumption that there was ample opportunity for a detailed astronomical transfer. Yet concrete historical evidence for such a profound exchange is strangely absent. We must ask, what kind of European visitor in the early 20th century would have been discussing the orbital mechanics of a white dwarf star with a remote tribe in Mali? Missionaries were focused on conversion, not astrophysics. Colonial administrators were preoccupied with taxes and governance. The idea that a traveler would sit down with Dogon elders and deliver a specialized lecture on Sirius B's 50-year elliptical orbit and its incredible density feels deeply improbable. This was not common knowledge, even in the West. It was the esoteric frontier of astronomy. Why would anyone teach such a thing, and why would the Dogon, fiercely protective of their own cosmology, adopt these foreign facts so perfectly and so secretly that they presented them as ancient, sacred wisdom? The transfer of such specific, technical data requires a motivated teacher and a receptive student, a scenario for which there is no documented proof. The timeline is also problematic. The most detailed knowledge was shared with Grayul in 1946. If contamination occurred, it would have had to happen after the scientific facts were established, and then be fully integrated into the deepest layers of Dogon spirituality within just a few decades. A process that seems rushed for a tradition known for its slow, deliberate preservation. Then there is the challenge to the symbolic interpretation. To dismiss the Dogon knowledge as mere metaphor is to ignore its sheer precision. Their descriptions are not vague spiritual allegories. They did not speak of a heavy heart or a dense spirit. They spoke of a specific star, with a specific orbital period, made of a specific heavy material. This is quantitative data, not qualitative poetry. If this was all a grand misunderstanding, born from Grayul imposing a scientific framework onto a spiritual one, we are left to wonder about the countless other details he recorded accurately about their society. He was not a casual tourist. He was a meticulous researcher who spent decades earning their trust. To suggest he fundamentally mistranslated the core of their cosmology is to undermine his entire life's work and the intelligence of the Dogon elders who chose to share their secrets with him. The counter-arguments are necessary, but they do not cleanly sweep the mystery away. They simply add another layer of questions to a puzzle that seems to grow more complex with every passing year. So what do the Dogon themselves make of this global obsession with their celestial secrets? For the elders and priests in the cliffside villages, the outside world's intense focus is often met with a quiet, knowing patience. They see anthropologists, documentarians, and mystery hunters arrive with their cameras and notebooks, all asking the same questions about Sirius and the Namo. While they may share parts of their story, there is a palpable sense that the deepest layers of their knowledge remain protected, shared only with those who have earned the right through years of respect and understanding. The global fascination is viewed not as a validation of their truth, but as a distant echo of a wisdom they have always held. This external attention, however, has created a complex new reality for the community. On one hand, it has brought a certain degree of economic benefit through cultural tourism, with visitors coming to witness the famous Sigwi ceremonies and purchase traditional art. Yet this very interest risks transforming their living spirituality into a performance for outsiders. There is a delicate balance between sharing their culture and having it commodified, between educating the world and preserving the sacred silence at the heart of their traditions. Contemporary anthropologists working in the region observe this dynamic with great concern. They note a growing tension between the Dogon's own internal, spiritual understanding of their history and the external, sensationalized narrative of ancient astronauts and cosmic mysteries. For many younger Dogon, this creates a confusing duality. They are raised with the profound, multilayered teachings of their elders, a cosmology that connects them to the land and the stars. But then they encounter a simplified, Hollywood version of their heritage promoted online and in popular media, which reduces their rich philosophy to a single soundbite about alien contact. This external narrative can inadvertently reshape their own sense of identity, placing more value on the parts of their culture that fascinate outsiders, while potentially overlooking the deeper, everyday spiritual practices that sustain their community. The fundamental question for the Dogon today is not who built the pyramids or where the Namo came from, but who gets to tell their story. Is it the Alubaru, the living custodians of an unbroken oral tradition? Or is it the authors and filmmakers who package their mysteries for a global audience hungry for wonder? This struggle over narrative ownership is perhaps the most pressing modern chapter of their ancient tale. It forces us to consider our own role as consumers of such mysteries. When we fixate on proving or disproving the Sirius connection, are we truly seeking to understand the Dogon people? Or are we simply mining their culture for a puzzle that satisfies our own worldview? The greatest lesson from the Dogon today might not be about the stars, but about respect, reminding us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved by outsiders, but to be lived by those who hold them sacred. This single thread of knowledge, pulled from the tapestry of Dogon tradition, threatens to unravel our entire understanding of the human past. We have built our history on a foundation of linear progress, a clear narrative where civilization advances from simple beginnings to complex modernity, with its epicenters firmly placed in the river valleys of Mesopotamia and the Nile. The story of the Dogon, however, presents a profound anomaly that does not fit this tidy map. If their astronomical wisdom is genuinely ancient and independently conceived, it suggests something revolutionary, that advanced intellectual achievement was not the sole property of the so-called cradles of civilization. It implies that profound discoveries could bloom in isolation, in places we have long considered peripheral to the main currents of human development. This forces us to ask a difficult but thrilling question. How many other pockets of sophisticated knowledge have flourished in the forgotten corners of the world, only to be lost to time, leaving no stone monuments behind, only whispers on the wind? The Dogon did not need ziggurats or written archives to map the heavens. Their university was the oral tradition, their laboratory the naked eye, and their library the collective memory of the people. Their existence challenges the very metrics we use to define an advanced society. We look for pyramids and aqueducts as proof of greatness, but perhaps we should also be listening for the chants that chart the orbits of invisible stars. This perspective does not diminish the accomplishments of Egypt or Sumer, but it dramatically widens the stage. It proposes a world where multiple, parallel paths of high learning existed, some leaving enduring physical legacies, while others wove their genius into the intangible fabric of culture, ritual, and story. The survival of the Dogon's star knowledge is a rare and precious glimpse into this other kind of civilization, one that measured its advancement not in the conquest of land, but in the mastery of the cosmos. It stands as a powerful reminder that the human drive to understand the universe is a universal flame, capable of burning brightly anywhere on Earth, under any conditions. So the real mystery may not be how the Dogon knew about Sirius B, but what other profound secrets from our own history have simply faded away because we were not listening in the right language. The Dogon are far from alone in their celestial obsession. Across the globe and throughout time, ancient cultures have turned their eyes to the heavens, weaving the stars into the very fabric of their existence. The Maya of Central America, for instance, were master timekeepers, their long count calendar a complex interlocking of cycles that tracked planetary movements with stunning accuracy. They predicted solar eclipses and charted the path of Venus, their observatories aligned with mathematical precision. Over in Mesopotamia, the Babylonians meticulously recorded the motions of the planets on clay tablets, laying the groundwork for Western astronomy with their detailed observations and early mathematical models. And on the windswept Salisbury Plain, the monolithic stones of Stonehenge stand as a silent, enduring testament to a deep understanding of solar and lunar cycles, its architecture perfectly framing the solstice sun. Each of these civilizations, in their own way, created a sophisticated system to map and make sense of the cosmos. What sets the Dogon apart is not their interest in the stars, but the specific, impossible nature of the data they preserve. The Maya tracked what they could see, the brilliant wonder of Venus. The Babylonians logged the visible planets. The builders of Stonehenge aligned their monument to the sun and moon, the most prominent bodies in the sky. The Dogon, however, focused their deepest spiritual teachings on an object that is fundamentally, utterly invisible. They built their most important generational ceremony around a star that cannot be seen without a powerful telescope. This is the core of their uniqueness. While other cultures were mastering the observable heavens, the Dogon oral tradition seems to contain knowledge of the unobservable, a detailed profile of a dark companion whose existence was a matter of scientific theory long before it was confirmed by sight. This shared human drive to understand the cosmos connects them to every stargazing culture in history. Yet the specific content of their knowledge places them in a category entirely their own. Their story asks us to redraw the map of ancient discovery, suggesting that the frontiers of human knowledge may have extended into realms we once thought were beyond their reach. Even with all the evidence laid out, some pieces of the puzzle refuse to fit neatly into place. The story is compelling, but it is not without its own internal contradictions and lingering ambiguities. For instance, while the Dogon description of Sirius B is remarkably precise, some of their other cosmological claims have proven more difficult to reconcile with modern astronomy. They speak of a third star in the system, Emye, which they depict as larger and lighter than the dense Po Tolo. To date, despite extensive searching, astronomers have not found definitive, conclusive proof of this Sirius C. There have been tantalizing hints, observations of gravitational perturbations that could suggest a small, faint red dwarf, but nothing confirmed. This leaves us with a question. Is Emye a prophetic insight yet to be verified, a symbolic representation of another cosmic principle, or perhaps a detail that became distorted over centuries of oral transmission? Then there are the anthropological records themselves. Later researchers who visited the Dogon after Grayul and Dieterlen sometimes reported difficulty in replicating the same detailed astronomical conversations. Some elders seemed to possess the knowledge, while others in the community were less familiar with the specific mechanics of the Sirius system. Does this variation point to a loss of specialized knowledge over time, or does it suggest that this was always the domain of a select few priests, the Ulubaru, and not common knowledge for the entire tribe? These inconsistencies do not dismantle the mystery, they complicate it. They remind us that we are dealing with a living, evolving tradition, not a static text frozen in time. Human memory, even when trained to a sacred discipline, is not a perfect digital recording. It breathes, it adapts, it emphasizes different elements across generations. The core facts about Sirius B remain stubbornly present, a brilliant and unexplained constant in this oral tradition. Yet the surrounding details shimmer with uncertainty, refusing to offer us the clean, simple resolution we might crave. This is the true nature of a deep historical puzzle. It is not a locked door waiting for one key, but a labyrinth of interconnected clues, dead ends, and unanswered questions. The mystery endures not because the evidence is weak, but because it is human, messy, and profoundly resistant to any single, easy explanation. This profound puzzle from Mali did not remain confined to academic journals. It ignited a cultural firestorm, becoming a foundational pillar for the entire ancient astronaut and UFO phenomenon. In the late 1960s and 70s, a new genre of speculative history was taking root, one that sought to reinterpret humanity's past through the lens of extraterrestrial intervention. Authors like Erich von Däniken seized upon the Dogon mystery as their ultimate proof. His book, Chariots of the Gods, presented the case not as a nuanced anthropological question, but as a sensational, open-end shut case. The narrative was irresistible, a remote tribe holding a secret that science could not explain without invoking star travelers. The story was perfectly packaged for a public already fascinated by the space race and growing reports of unidentified flying objects. It provided a seemingly concrete, non-Western source for ideas that had previously been dismissed as science fiction. The Dogon were portrayed as the living guardians of a cosmic truth, their oral traditions treated as literal historical records of first contact. This interpretation spread like wildfire, spawning dozens of books, television specials, and later, countless online forums and documentaries. The specific details of the Sirius system became a kind of shibboleth, a piece of esoteric knowledge that proved humanity was not alone. The tribe's cliffside villages were transformed in the popular imagination from a cultural sanctuary into a potential landing site, their rituals reframed as anniversaries of a real, physical event. This single anthropological case study, stripped of its complexities and counter-arguments, became a cornerstone for an entire alternative view of history. It offered a simple and thrilling answer to the question of human origins, one that placed the Dogon at the very center of a cosmic drama. The mystery's power lay in its simplicity, a single, stunning fact that seemed to defy all conventional explanation, inviting everyone to look up at the night sky and wonder who, or what, might have visited us long ago. Academic perspectives on the Dogon have shifted dramatically over the decades, moving from wonder to skepticism, and finally toward a more nuanced middle ground. The initial reaction to the work of Graeul and Dieterlen was one of astonishment, but as time passed, other anthropologists returned to the Bandiagara Escarpment with new questions and more rigorous methodologies. The field of ethnology itself had evolved, placing a greater emphasis on collaborative research and a deeper awareness of the researcher's own influence on the subject. Where Graeul operated in an era of lone experts interpreting a culture, modern approaches seek to amplify the voices of the people themselves, treating them as co-investigators in their own history. Later field studies revealed a more complex picture. Some anthropologists found that not every Dogon elder possessed the same detailed astronomical knowledge Graeul had recorded. This knowledge was not uniformly distributed, but was instead the specialized domain of the high-ranking priests, the Alubaru. For the wider community, the stories of the Namo and Po Tolo were deeply held spiritual truths, but the precise 50-year orbital mechanics were not part of common conversation. This did not disprove the mystery, but it reframed it, suggesting that this was esoteric, protected wisdom, not general folklore. Furthermore, these subsequent researchers paid closer attention to the internal diversity of Dogon thought. They found that different villages, and even different families within the same village, sometimes held variations of the cosmological stories. This natural variation is a hallmark of a living, oral tradition, where the core narrative remains constant while certain details flex and adapt over time. The modern anthropological view is less about proving or disproving a single, spectacular claim, and more about understanding the Dogon worldview as a complex, integrated system. The question is no longer just, how did they know about Sirius B? But what does this knowledge mean within the full context of their philosophy, their environment, and their history? This shift does not solve the puzzle, but it grounds it in a richer, more respectful soil, where the Dogon are not merely subjects of a mystery, but active participants in an ongoing dialogue about the meaning of their own celestial heritage. The story of the Dogon and Sirius compels us to look beyond the stars and into a mirror, reflecting our own responsibilities as seekers of knowledge. This is not merely an astronomical puzzle, it is a profound ethical challenge. When anthropologists like Graeul and Dieterlen were granted unprecedented access to the deepest layers of Dogon spirituality, they were entrusted with a sacred legacy. Their work, while groundbreaking, raises a difficult question about the weight of that trust. Does the academic pursuit of understanding grant outsiders the right to share secrets that were never meant for the global stage? The very act of documenting and publishing this knowledge, even with the best intentions, removes it from its protected cultural context and places it into the public domain, where it can be twisted, sensationalized, or stripped of its spiritual meaning. The anthropologist's pen becomes a powerful tool, one that can either preserve a fading world or inadvertently shatter its sacred silence. Where is the line between respectful documentation and a form of intellectual extraction, where the wisdom of a culture is mined like a resource for external consumption? This leads directly to the pervasive issue of cultural appropriation. The Dogon mystery has been lifted from its roots and repackaged countless times to serve narratives that have little to do with the people themselves. Their complex cosmology is often reduced to a single, thrilling soundbite about alien contact. a storyline that sells books and fuels television shows, but fundamentally distorts their worldview. This is exploitation disguised as celebration. It takes a living, breathing spiritual tradition and turns it into a prop for someone else's theory. The real people of the Bandiagara Escarpment, with their daily struggles, their rich social fabric, and their deep connection to their land, become secondary characters in a drama written by outsiders. Their identity is overshadowed by a mystery they may not even recognize as their primary legacy. How would we feel if the most sacred texts of our own cultures were taken, reinterpreted to fit a popular fad, and then sold back to us as entertainment? The responsibility, then, extends to all of us who engage with this story. As an audience captivated by the wonder of it all, we must ask ourselves what we are truly seeking. Are we looking for a quick answer to an ancient riddle, a piece of evidence to support a pre-existing belief? Or are we willing to engage with the Dogon on their own terms, to appreciate the depth of their philosophy without demanding that it conform to our own desire for cosmic secrets? The most respectful approach may be to listen more and interpret less, to value their knowledge not for how it proves our theories, but for what it reveals about the magnificent diversity of human thought. The greatest mystery may not be in the stars, but in learning how to honor the keepers of the flame without getting burned by the glare of our own fascination. We stand now at the crossroads of all these possibilities, with the evidence spread out before us like the star maps of the Dogon themselves. There is no simple verdict, only a weighing of scales. On one side rests the powerful argument for cultural contamination, a theory grounded in the messy realities of human history. It is undeniably plausible that the specific details about Sirius B were absorbed during the early 20th century, a time when colonial contact was increasing. This explanation requires no rewriting of history, only an acknowledgement of how ideas can travel and transform, becoming seamlessly woven into an existing spiritual fabric over a generation or two. It is the most conservative, the most Occam's razor-like solution, yet the scale does not slam down decisively. The lack of a smoking gun, a specific documented moment of transfer, leaves a lingering doubt. Would a colonial schoolteacher really discuss the density of a white dwarf star? Would the Dogon, so protective of their traditions, adopt such foreign facts so completely and present them as ancient, sacred truth? The contamination theory is logical, but it feels almost too neat, failing to fully account for the profound integration of this knowledge into their most sacred, generational ceremonies. This leads us to the other side of the scale, the possibility of a genuine, independent discovery born from unparalleled dedication. Imagine generations of priest astronomers watching the sway of Sirius A, patiently recording its subtle wobble over centuries. This theory champions the ingenuity of the human mind, presenting the Dogon as brilliant scientists of the African continent, whose achievements have been overlooked because they left no written records or stone observatories. Their university was the oral tradition, their instrument the trained eye. This is a powerful and inspiring narrative, but it, too, strains against certain limits. Inferring the existence of a dark companion from a stellar wobble is one thing, but describing its composition as the heaviest matter in the universe moves from brilliant deduction to something that feels almost prescient. Perhaps the most elegant resolution lies not in choosing one extreme over the other, but in a synthesis. The foundation of their knowledge, their deep, spiritual focus on the Sirius system, could indeed be ancient, a remnant of a sophisticated pan-African astronomical tradition shared with or inherited from civilizations like ancient Egypt. This core reverence for the binary nature of Sirius could have been part of their worldview for millennia. Then, when contact with the West occurred, this existing framework was not replaced, but refined. The new, precise scientific data about orbital periods and stellar density did not create the mystery. It simply updated an ancient one, slotting perfectly into a cosmology that was already primed to receive it. The Dogon elders, recognizing the alignment between the new facts and their old stories, may have incorporated these details to enrich and validate their own timeless traditions. This blended view honors both the depth of their indigenous wisdom and the undeniable forces of historical change. It suggests that the truth is not a single thread, but a braid of ancient insight, human genius, and cultural exchange. The real mystery, then, may not be a question of how they knew, but a testament to the enduring, dynamic power of a culture to hold the cosmos within its stories, adapting and preserving its truth across the vast expanse of time. This incredible journey through the Dogon mystery leaves us standing at the edge of a profound question, staring into the depths of both the cosmos and our own history. We have traversed from the cliffside villages of Mali to the heart of the Sirius system, witnessing a perfect alignment of ancient myth and modern science. The knowledge is undeniable, a detailed celestial profile of an invisible star, held in trust by an oral tradition for generations. We have weighed the compelling theories, from the logical probability of cultural contamination to the breathtaking possibility of independent discovery, or even a forgotten connection to ancient Egypt. We have confronted the sensational narrative of ancient astronauts and grappled with the ethical complexities of interpreting another culture's sacred truth. Yet, after all the analysis and argument, the mystery endures, not as a problem to be solved, but as a permanent invitation to wonder. It forces us to acknowledge the vast, silent continents of human history that lie outside our textbooks, the achievements of cultures that measured their genius not in monuments of stone, but in the perfect preservation of cosmic truth. The story of the Dogon is a humbling reminder that our understanding of the past is still a fragment, a single thread in a tapestry of unimaginable complexity. It challenges us to keep looking up at the stars with that same mix of curiosity and reverence, to keep questioning the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we come from. What do you think is the most compelling explanation for this ancient knowledge? Share your own theories in the comments below. And if you are captivated by the world's great enigmas, subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries that shape our understanding